Okay, we're going to take a look at the Jarmail to Google Apps migration tool. And this is the tool that's going to change the routing and optionally move mail from the Jarmail account to the Google Apps account. To use the tool, you'll enter the email address of the person you wish to migrate and click the Add to Queue button. If you would prefer not to transfer the emails for a POP account or any other situation where you don't wish to move the mail from the Jarmail account to the Google Apps account, you can check this box, don't transfer emails. When I start this tool, a few things are going to happen. The first thing that will happen is the routing will change from the Jarmail account to the Google Apps account, so the mail routing directory will change to route that mail to Google Apps. And the second thing that's going to happen is the Jarmail password will be changed to a temporary password. If you look at the users, the accounts that are sitting in the queue, there is a hyperlink here that says PW. If I click that link, I will get two passwords. One says old, that's the current Jarmail password if it's known, and the other one says new, that's the temporary Jarmail password that's going to be used during this period of migration so that the customer or anybody else isn't logging into the Jarmail account while migration is happening. You, the migrator, have that password if for some reason you would need to log into the customer's Jarmail account, like to move calendar and contacts. You can do that while the tool is moving the mail. So it will change the routing, change the Jarmail password to a temporary password during the period of migration. When the migration completes successfully, or when it completes, it will change the Jarmail password back to what it was if it can. If it knew what the password was and when it started, it will change the Jarmail password back, leave it as it was before the migration. The third thing that happens, if we're dealing with an sil.org Google Apps account, then it will change the Google Apps password to the same thing as the Jarmail password. That's very helpful for migrators, so then you know both what the Google Apps password is and what the Jarmail password is. During the migration, the Jarmail password will be the temporary one, and then once the migration ends, it'll go back to what it was before. If you're dealing with an account on another domain, not sil.org, like jars.org or any of the other domains, and you don't know what the Google Apps password is, and you need that in order to set up the customer's email client, you'll either need to find out from the customer what their Google Apps password is. You can take a guess that it might be the same as the Jarmail password, and that's what we've been attempting to do. By default, create their Google Apps password the same as their Jarmail account password if we can. If not, you can use the Google Mail admin tool to reset their Google password to something that you know, and you can do that while the migration tool is running. The Google Apps migration tool doesn't need to, it won't hurt the tool if you change the password while the tool is running. So it changes the routing, messes with passwords, definitely does the Jarmail password, does the Google password if it's an sil.org account. And then it puts it in a queue to go to the tool. The name of the tool is GAMI, so you'll see that waiting for GAMI. It's a Google tool that will move the mail if you hadn't checked the box that said not to move the mail, it will do that. When it moves the mail, it's going to move mail and folders, but not calendar and contacts. If you need to move calendar and contacts, you'll need to do that separately from the client. You can also do that from webmail if that's stored on the Jarmail server. So it will move the mail. Once migration completes, it will send you, the migrator, a message letting you know that it completed. If it had some non-critical errors, you'll see those in the queue here. There's a few that have complete with errors, non-critical errors. Those are typically the customer had something in their Jarmail account that Google didn't accept. So something like a message in their draft folder with an attachment that was larger than what Google would accept, or a message anywhere in any of their folders with a disallowed attachment type for Google. And when you see those, it will give you an indication of what happened, and you can let the customer know if you need to do that if it completes with errors. Otherwise, if it completes successfully, it just resets the Jarmail password the way it was before it started, and sends out those email messages. One to you, the migrator, with some kind of technical information, and then it sends one to the customer, and you, the migrator, will also get a copy of the message the customer receives. If you're moving mail, the tool moves one message per second, which could be a long time if you're dealing with a large account. You don't need to wait to start setting up the clients for the tool to finish. You can just start the tool and then move on to the next step in the migration. And then we typically just let the customer know that new mail will start arriving in their Google Apps account immediately, and they can start using their account immediately. And their old mail that's being migrated by this tool will just trickle in as the migration tool finishes, and once it finishes, then they'll get that email message that lets them know the account has finished, or the migration has finished. If the account, there's some kind of error during migration, you'll get that error message, and if you are unsure or you run into something unusual, and the Google Migrators group is a great place to ask questions, find out what's happening with those. So that's the Google Apps Migration Tool.